Earlier in the course, we introduced the foundational Dialplan constructs of context, extension, and priority. At the time, we covered just the most basic aspects of these ideas. Now we can expand on these ideas and discuss more elaborate Dialplan features. Remember that we've described contexts as groupings of logically similar extensions. There might be one context for your IVR and another for outgoing calls. We've seen that the Goto family of applications can jump between contexts, but Asterisk offers a more subtle and clever way of relating one context to another. Context includes let an Asterisk administrator configure how contexts relate to one another. At a high level, if a context is included in another context, the extensions in the included context become available as if they were in the same context. This is important for configuring access to groups of extensions, both to allow and to deny access. Context includes are defined in extensions.conf, anywhere inside the context that will be including the other context. The syntax for the include statement is simple. Include equals greater than, followed by the name of the context to include. When this statement is present, if Asterisk is unable to match the dial digits to an extension in the current context, it will look in the included context for a match. Remember that it's possible for the same extension name to exist in more than one context. Asterisk will match the extension in the current context before looking in any other included context, so it doesn't change Asterisk's behavior if a matching extension happens to exist in an included context. There are several reasons to use context includes in your Dialplan. If each context is supposed to logically separate groups of extensions, it makes sense to have a different context for internal phones than for the inbound auto-attendant menu. But a menu option for the IVR might prompt the user to dial the extension of the person they want to reach. We could have all the extensions for the internal phones in the same context as the IVR, but then we're not separating logical groups of extensions. A better approach is to put all the phone extensions in their own context, and then include the phone context from the auto-attendant menu context as seen here. In this example, we have two extensions to dial internal endpoints. In another PBX, there might be dozens or hundreds. It would obviously not be ideal to duplicate these extensions in our AA_menu context. Take note that Asterisk will always try to match in the current context before looking in an included context. Asterisk will match a pattern in the current context even before looking for a literal in an included context. In fact, the position of an include statement in a context is even important. The position of includes relative to extensions in a context is unimportant, but the order of included contexts is very important when there is more than one include. We'll demonstrate with an example. When a user dials 333, the call begins in context A. Asterisk searches context A for a match, but will be unable to find one, and will look for a match in the first included context listed. Context B is listed ahead of context C, so Asterisk will look for a match in context B. When it finds a match, the letter B will be played back. But if we reorder the include statements so context C is ahead of context B, then when Asterisk searches context A, it will find context C first. Asterisk looks in context C, matches on extension 333, and the letter C is played. Includes are also transitive. If Asterisk fails to match in the starting context and moves to the first include listed, it might fail to match an extension in this context as well. If this context also includes further contexts, the process will repeat with Asterisk moving to the first include listed in that context, and so on. In this example, the user dials 444. It will begin by searching in context A, then moves to the first include listed when it fails to find a match. It doesn't find 444 in context B, so it looks in the includes one at a time. When it fails to find a match in context B1 and then B2, it runs out of includes in context B and proceeds to context C. There's no match in context C, so Asterisk looks in the first include, context C1. No match is found in C1, so it looks in the next include, context C2. Here, a match is finally found.
Congratulations! You have successfully installed and executed the Asterisk open source PBX.
This may seem like a slow process to find a match, but of course, a modern computer runs millions of times faster than our example. In practice, modest hardware running Asterisk can reliably find an extension match in a Dialplan with tens of thousands of extensions without any noticeable delay. Remember that the position of context within extensions.conf does not matter. The first context in the file can include a context that isn't defined until the end of the file. Order only matters when there are multiple includes in the same context. We've seen that besides includes, the Goto application and its relatives can also change the context a call is in. It's common to use gotos in a context with includes, but this can lead to some surprising results, as we'll demonstrate. If the user dials extension 1, the call starts in context 1, and they'll hear the character
A
played over and over. This is because if Goto only has one argument, it's the priority to jump to. Priority 1 of extension 1 of context 1 is looped indefinitely. It doesn't matter that the included context 2 has an extension 1 in it, because asterisk doesn't try to match an included context if it finds a match in the current context. However, if the user dials extension 2, the included context 2 will have to be searched, because context 1 has no extension 2. The user will hear
C
played once, and then the Goto tells asterisk to move to extension 1, priority 1. It doesn't specify a context, so asterisk keeps the same context, which is context 1, because processing an include does not change the context of a call. Dialing 2 will cause the user to hear a single
C
followed by an endless string of
A
played over and over again. Dialing extension 3 is a different story.
D
Is played first, then the Goto explicitly redirects the call to extension 2, priority 1 in context 2.
C
Is then played, and the next priority is processed. Because the Goto in extension 3 reset the context to context 2, now the Goto in extension 2 redirects the call to extension 1 in context 2 instead of context 1. So the entire playback when dialing 3 is
D
then,
C
then,
B
is repeated until the call is hung up. Before we finish our discussion of includes, we'll need to cover one other form of include. In extensions.conf, the word include by itself is an indicator that one context is being included in another. There's another directive that doesn't directly deal with contexts. Asterisk lets you incorporate the contents of another file directly into extensions.conf by using the pound include. You can type the pound or hash sign followed by the word include, followed by a space, and then the path to the file you want to include. This makes it possible to break up very large dial plans into multiple files so they're easier to manage. It makes sense to break up the dial plan into files based on what types of extensions or contexts are in each file, but there's no requirement to do so. In fact, there are no requirements enforced on this type of file include at all. When asterisk finds the file include directive, it pauses parsing of extensions.conf to go read and load the included file. After it loads the contents of the included file, it resumes parsing extensions.conf. Try not to confuse the include statement with the file include directive. File includes do not impact the dial plan logic or call flow like the include statement does. These two types of includes have nothing in common except their name. In this module, we've seen how we can relate context to one another using the include statement. We've learned about its syntax, saw several examples of its behavior, and looked into how goto statements and included context work together. We've also introduced the file include directive. In the next module, we'll build on the idea of included context to show how to set up classes of access, to permit different types of callers to have access to different functionality.